Greetings all. Welcome to another writing session for Tales of the Harrowed Land role-playing game, the game I'm developing and plan to publish about probably a little less than a year from now in its final form. Doing that through Fox and Boar Games, new website. Go check it out. There's a lot of content. If you're watching this on Twitch, you obviously know where to find me. If you are on YouTube, feel free to go over and subscribe to the Twitch stream. We have pretty interesting chats there once a week, kind of open topic where people are there chatting about various aspects of RPGs. Last night was problem players. That was interesting topic because of course the subtext is maybe the player's not really the problem, right? That's kind of where we left off with that chat, and we had to evaluate each situation. Why are there problems at a game table? And then a couple times a week I go in and I do these work chats to kind of catalog where I'm at with the game and hold myself accountable, have some specified game writing time. It's kind of my job for the next year to get this game done. And that's what I'm doing. Obviously, if you are on Twitch, feel free to go subscribe to the YouTube because all these are going to be archived at the YouTube channel permanently, all these chats and work sessions, and there's going to be additional YouTube specific content coming. So Twitter and Facebook, find me at Fox and Board Games, and feel free to say hi, ask questions. And seems like every time I do this stream, I get a few new people. So if you pop in and you're new and you're listening, feel free to say hi, but don't feel pressured to. So with that, we will start doing some work. I tend to go back and forth on the use of the word hero. So this game in the original concept was going to be maybe a little more dark fantasy, maybe a little more horror focused, but then you start to determine what are the dynamics of a horror game versus a fantasy game. And I've talked a little bit about this on the various streams, but one of the main things is that in a horror game, the expectation of growth and success is not there. The expectation sometimes of a horrible fate is there. And this game is not about that. This game is closer to Robert E. Howard or Michael Moorcock or Fritz Leiber or any of kind of the classic old school sword and sorcery fantasy settings, or a lot of the movies from the 80s, like, of course, Conan the Barbarian, but Beastmaster and, Sword and Sorcerer and all that. So it's meant to be this, kind of overblown, heavy metal, high fantasy game. Which I think definitely has a certain appeal to players of a certain demographic, age, if you want to say that. But it's gotten really good reviews. There's a pretty robust social system and political system in as well. So it's not just about, hack and slash and slay your enemies and see them driven before you. Though if you want to play it like that, that's perfectly fine. But where I'm at now is really getting the section of gifts together. And I describe gifts as your character superpowers, whether they would be spells or feats or character class abilities in D&D or Pathfinder, or in, White Wolf games, your discipline or your rage ability or whatever it is. So the thing that makes you heroic, makes you a superhero. Because then I find in most of these games, no matter what anyone says, you're basically playing a superhero. Even D&D, you're playing a superhero, in my opinion. Especially the new versions of D&D. And I had an interesting chat last night with a long-time gamer friend of mine who still runs Forstead, old school. You were not a superhero. Sometimes you were lucky if you survived your first encounter with goblins. Oh, so I already dropped all this in. I guess I dropped all this into the chapter 1, 2. So this is the character creation chapter. I did a short form description of each of the gifts, and some of them are paths, like they're sequential powers, or independent powers, rather, that are grouped under one heading just to make life easier. Instead of having 20 different battle gifts or 30 different battle gifts, which is how it originally was. Well, I didn't have that many. That each one kind of had their own system. I consolidated it and made it a system, made them unified systems within at least within the different paths. So where am I at now? So I guess fortune should probably be down under lucre because it's not reliant. It's not really a trait. I'm nearing the end of this particular part of this document. And obviously this will begin to evolve as the game is continuing to be play tested. It has been play tested pretty thoroughly, at least the core system. We all know what happens as soon as players get a hold of things out in the wild. What players in the wild do to your game. I think when I teach game design, the thing that I hear the most is, I never thought anybody would even think to do that with these rules. I'm like, well, gamers. We all are them. We all like to do strange anarchistic things with rules. Things that nobody's expecting, that are out of their bounds. If you do it all the time, you're a problem player. Back to my chat last night. Alright, so I guess fortune should be here. Sorry. Do I call it fate? Did I miscall it? I guess I did call it fate. I've been mentally calling it fortune now for months, and I guess it's a fate point. Yeah, I guess it's a fate point. Well, okay. This is why we need an editor, who we hopefully will have on deck. So let's see. Fate, Lucra. So I'm switching between several different documents here, and I'm not always refreshing them, so. GIF, so I guess the GIF section, I guess this is where it needs to be. So, progressive. As long as this jives with this list, I guess my most updated list. Is there. So I guess I need to open up my next document. As I joke almost every time, if you're watching me run these games or run this game session, like 2/3 of it is me switching between documents. The other third is me looking up stuff on the web, like pronunciations and new words and. All right. This document's almost done. I mean, at least in its first draft form. Starting positions and money, what all players are obsessed with, right? Yeah, there's one. Mike's too far away. I'm getting a really strong signal. Again, I think that might be you. It seems like you've been having some volume issues. I'm at just below, yeah, just below decibel peak. I think I even actually went almost to peak a couple times. How's that? Does that sound any better? It is. It's a little farther away, and I'll tell you why. Because the sound of the fan. That's all right. The fan was interfering with it a couple days ago, and I didn't realize till I played it back later that the fan was like louder than me sometimes, and it still is loud. This fan is still loud. Well, it's not necessarily a two-parter. It's I've been working on the same document for 3 days, so just for categorization purposes, I've delineated it into different viewing chapters, for lack of a better word. Speaking of noisy, large dog being silly in the background. Character advancement. Advancement points. I think this is the bulk of this document. So, creating a character document, at least in its raw form, is almost 30 pages, 28. Just at 28 pages. And that's without a lot of, I guess the next step's to go back through and do some editing and embellishment. See. M. Shallop, hey, what's up? How are you? Yeah, it's funny. I was going to drop you a line and see what was up, if you were going to school or not, or where your next path in life was taking you. Thanks for coming on. Do a follow and a like and subscribe if you are going to hang around and watch these up periodically. That's really funny. I was literally just this morning like, I should write Madeline and see what's up and see if she's going to school or if she's around. What are you up to? Excellent. Good. Send me a link for that at some point. Not through here because I won't get through. But if you want to just send it over via text or yeah, yeah, send it via text or email or whatever. I'd love to hear some of what you did. I've been really had my head in this and on music, on more formal music lessons and stuff, and working on some stuff. So I haven't done as much actual sound work this summer, but it'll definitely be coming as I produce more for this particular game. Yeah, great on the jam. I mean, that's what you do, you know. I mean, that's what I tell everybody. Just produce. And if you're interested in, you know, and I've been talking to Chris about it, he might have mentioned it, but if you have anything like pen and paper or boardy going on, or even something digital that is smaller than a full blown video game, let me know because I am looking for additional games to publish. So, hey, this is Lynn. Sound should be there. Elisand's had sound issues a couple times when she's come on. I might have just had a bit of a drop, a bit of a lag, because I had a couple viewers bounce on and off. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, everybody involved is doing good work. Various speeds because of various reasons. Like, I don't think you know Patrick, but he just is a machine. He's cranking out this miniature game, and he's already got possible miniature contributions and terrain contributions from like established companies line up. I mean, he's really pushing ahead. And I'm like, this is great. And Chris is doing good too. I just have you played Chris's game? I need to we need to actually sit down and do a play test. Of course, he's going to another school and moving, so that'll be harder. But I'll be getting his game from him in the next few weeks probably, so that I have it to play test. All right, so where I'm at with this. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you have an old netbook, then absolutely, it it will definitely be a little slower. Yeah. Tell him you want to play test it again. As many play tests, and this is, and I don't know if it's a case. I know he said he's play tested a little bit. I don't know if it's a case he doesn't want to show it to people till it's really ready to go, or he just hasn't gotten to it. But I mean, the whole goal is putting these out before they're ready to get playtest feedback. I had one session of this game that I've been working on for 3 years at that point, where we just realized one whole system wasn't working. One whole system just had to be rewritten that night because I was like, it just there had never been an instance where it broke, and then when it finally broke, it broke, and it was like, wow. I mean, Crosby was playing, Tom Toynton, who you may or may not have met at any point. I don't remember, but he's, you know, a game designer, game instructor. You know, we'd been playing it for several years, and we never had this issue of wait a minute, something literally just stopped working in this. Additional action points. I guess the big thing I should go back through and just do a edit of this. Yeah, well, if you have any game ideas, I mean, you definitely there might be a point, maybe not in the immediate future, but down the road, where I have some media that might need some sound editing, and of course, if I'm overwhelmed, I will definitely hook you up with some sound editing stuff. So we'll see how things go. Things are picking up. Oh, I'm glad you made it on. Because like I said, it's really uncanny. Because just this morning I was like, I should drop Madeline a note. See what's up. Taking off time to work is fine. I just had a long discussion with a person I do music lessons with, and she's a really famous European musician. And, we had a whole discussion about part of the hazard of trying to be in the creative arts in the US is, things like no health care, things like no minimum standard of living, so it's really hard to do all this stuff. Yeah, yeah. It's really hard to do all this stuff here without a job unless you can somehow figure that out. So working for your benefits and for some money is no problem. And then you can decide what you want to do from there. If in a year you're ready to go back or go somewhere else, you should go to Champlain. I didn't get the job there, but that's okay. I mean, I kind of wrote them and said, well, I was just granted a year sabbatical to sit home and work on a game. So, like, if you offer me the job, I'll take it. But just so you know, and I think they might have, even though I was kind of an off the record email I sent to the committee head, I think they probably were like, yeah, we're not going to hire someone who's on, just got a year sabbatical to work on something. They don't really want to do this now. So, but Champlain's a great school. I have, like I said, I have several friends who teach there. Not in game, but in other things. Yeah, it's really awesome. The area is really beautiful too. I have two final destinations in life in mind. If it's not Germany, it very well could be Vermont in the area of Burlington. But Germany is looking like long term. This could be a reality. That's not a new thought, by the way. That's been around for a while. It's looking more viable as I make more connections there for my own work and for other stuff. But who knows? Maybe it'll be Vermont. I really like Vermont. Augmenting these in play. Nice and other minor advantages. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I know what I kind of crossed my mind. Yeah. So he's still there. He's still managing shop, right? That's great. Yeah. Well, I had that whole conversation with him years ago. When I saw him reading 3 books in various languages on nautical history, and he was like, "Yeah, I want nothing to do with academia," and I understand now. Quite honestly, I'm kind of like, "Yeah, I get it." He's like, "Yeah, I didn't want to, I didn't want to be an academic. I just want to work and enjoy my life." And I remember that whole conversation very clearly, and I get it. I'm at the point in life I want to do my own creative work. I was out shooting pictures this morning. I'll have some of those up. Like I said, I spent yesterday a very intensive music lesson, which is nice. Do web shop? Cool. That's not so bad. Okay, well, I'm only saying that in the context you probably don't have to deal with a lot of customers face to face. And that's probably a little less stressful. But I don't know. Maybe it's not. Yeah, I couldn't remember if Alan was ShopRite. I knew he was in a grocery store for years, and of course I didn't know if he was still there because I hadn't talked to him about it recently. But say hello to Alan if he's around. I touch base with him on Facebook sometimes. But Trust me. Let's see. All right, I'll see you later. Yeah, drop me a line on that sound stuff you were working on for the game. If I don't see you, thanks a lot for dropping in. It's great chatting, and we'll catch up soon. I'll be on for a couple hours. I don't know if I'll be on more than 2 hours today, but I'll see you later, or I'll be on next week too. That's redundant. To any one role. I don't have to say once to any one role. It's rather goofy of me. Yeah, that's what I kind of figured. I figured he was probably at this stage doing the day shifts and all that. Yeah, it might have been ShopRite when I was seeing you guys more regularly. I think that might have been still ShopRite then. It's been a while. Been a scary while. Yeah, Blake was upset he missed you because he had logged off right before you came on last night. He pops on periodically. He might be lurking now. Sometimes he puts it on while he's doing stuff. He lives out in Michigan now, so won't be seeing him in person anytime soon, but... Folks who touches on this memory. So I think the next task for me, before I move on with other chapters of the book, is to make a quick start guide for character creation. I mean, this is a summarized version of a lot of the traits and abilities, but with expanded descriptions available later on. But this is still 28 pages. This is not a quick start guide. So I think I've got to do one of those. Whoops. Oh, well, that's interesting. I guess that was full screen. Huh. Do a quick start guide of, how to make a character in 10 minutes, basically. And I guess maybe I have to move for something like Illustrator for that. I guess I should also take a look at the character sheet. I made one 2 years ago. Obviously, it's extremely dated now. No, not extremely dated. Let me see if I can pull that up. Okay. It was InDesign that I did this. Yeah, I did this in InDesign. Yeah, you're welcome, right? Like whoever thought, oh yeah, we'd be revisiting this online 15 years later or however long it's been, 12 years later. So is this my fillable sheet? I think it's my fillable sheet. I know some of these skills don't even exist in this form anymore. I'll share that screen. It's a pretty cool character sheet, if I must say so myself. It's almost like I know something about art and design. Yeah, Illustrator is actually my preferred way to do it. InDesign, though, gave me more options as far as fillable items. Character notes, positions, gifts, persona. Oh, I guess this sheet's still pretty relevant. There's a couple things that are different now, but mostly some of my skill descriptions or skill options are a little different. I think most of it's pretty intact, more so than I thought. I need to add a section for Lucra, which was a new trait that we came up with. And Lucra is basically, I think I talked about it during another one of these, kind of like, I don't know, if you play Call of Cthulhu, your credit rating. Like you could just, if you have a credit rating of 5, or a Lucra of 5 in this case, and something costs 4 coins, you could just buy, like you don't have to track your money. And that, of course, is so that, you're not playing this game of heroic fantasy and your player can't get a new dagger because, they're 1 coin short or whatever. Sure, that leads to good role playing, but that kind of goes into what we were talking about last night with problematic people and situations. Well, I don't know if you were on last night. Wendell, did you come on? Yeah, you did. You came on. That's right. You gave the TED Talks. And, well, yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's on there. This game's not focused on treasure. This game's not focused on. Yeah, lucre is an old term for cash, like cachet or treasure or something like that. So, which I thought was cool. I kind of just found it one day. And I was like, hey, that sounds like a cool name for a character attribute. Character notes, possessions, persona. I guess under persona, I could actually give a prompt. But it's a way to just so that the players don't get bogged down in minutia. I know players love minutia. I sat down, I think, at a Shadowrun game at a con. Last time I was at Origins, a number of years ago now. But there were guys who were thrilled to figure out like which weapon has exactly how many pieces of ammo and where they're carrying it. I'm like, have fun. That is not why I play these games. And it never really has been. Yes, Black Sails is very cool. I actually really got into. I was surprised. I'm very skeptical of most, especially modern pirate things, because most of it's. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean. Yes, it's funny. It's fun. Whatever. I do watch. I have watched the movies. They're great for not when you don't want to think about anything. But yeah, Black Sails was amazingly good, and it had a really good feel of the life and lifestyle of that period. And yes, it was fantasy in some ways, but no, minutia is fine with some things. I mean, I love it when players get into the minutia of their character. Again, for as much as in these talks I'm snarky sometimes, and I'm like, no one cares about your backstory, or that's a problem player trait. I really, that's really not how I really. You know that for people who've played with me or know me in person know I'm not really that curmudgeonly. I mean, kind of that curmudgeonly. Let's see, skills. Where is my skill list? So this character creation document should be listed as old. Which means we will use it for reference and archival purposes. In fact, we'll put it in the old documents. Let's take a look at a skill list here. Make sure I am in fact using the right skills. So now I have one of my players offering to be the problem player. Yeah, no, we don't need that, Mel. Hey, yeah, Blake's here listening in, but he's not really paying too much attention because he's doing some other stuff. But that's fine. Yeah, I was kind of surprised when let's see. Will this be a skill heavy or a light game? So, skills are the main way the character interfaces with the game world. I prefer skill centric games. I don't know if I would call them skill heavy. It's not Rollmaster or even Warhammer Fantasy. Maybe there are no. There's not even as many skills as Warhammer Fantasy. There's probably about half the number, or maybe 2/3 of the number. So it's that's a really good question. And so in my mind, it is role playing. It's narratively focused. There is a heavy Rollmaster. Yeah, Rollmaster is just so. Rollmaster is basically a war game with war game level of simulation with RPG characters. It's great. It's great for what it was. It was used for the early Middle Earth role play. It was, if you want to create the Battle of Helm's Deep and all its amazing gory glory from the book, then Rollmaster is your thing. But this game is somewhere between. I would say something more narrative on the order of some of the storyteller stuff, but it is human centric, and it's really built so that I built it off the traditional 3 tiers in most societies, but in this case, most ancient societies. That there are the aspects of politics, the common life of the people of this land that doesn't really come into play. And then, of course, there is a combat, a heroic, an adventurous aspect. And there is magic. It is not low magic because the magic's actually very powerful, but it's also difficult to use. It's expensive to buy as a character, and you have to get it to start, and it is difficult to use, and it's dangerous to use. So it's not. Having said that, we still find magic dominates a lot of situations, and that's something I'm still struggling with. That's something that every game designer, I mean, I've talked to, or at least online, had interactions with professional designers, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, magic's horrible. Yeah, don't do it. Don't have magic in your game. That's stupid. Not really. They don't really say that, but trade. Yeah, I mean, this sheet is actually not so too outdated. I thought this was going to be way worse. I guess the core elements have remained the same. So there's a lot of the problem solving can come into play with the skills. A lot of the skills are used in such a way that they relate to what the character knows and sees in the environment. They don't necessarily rely on like a player knowing how to do something in an environment. I wanted to kind of integrate character point of view in a little more heavily than a lot of these games do. So acumen, animal handling. Presence, armed combat, athletics, climbing, concoction. Dodge. Dodge is no longer a skill. Actually, I had a real discussion about dodge no longer being a skill with someone I know who is a martial artist. Let's see. Yeah, bro. Charts you with trip over. Yeah, trip over an imaginary deceased turtle. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Um, the high, middle, and low. Yeah, so chaos packs. So there are actually the equivalent of chaos packs in this game. That's where the corruption score comes in. Oh, you want to be good at magic? Want to be better at magic? Here, get another corruption point. That of course does things to your character, like the old Elric game. It can degenerate your character, and of course that's built in. Mostly for sorcery. There's three different types of magic. There's primeval, witchcraft, and sorcery. Witchcraft is like your hearth magic. Primeval's your druidic magic, for lack of a better word. And sorcery is exactly what it is. Necromancy, dealing with demons, all the fun stuff. So, demons, these other things that are in the world. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the ongoing. I guess I was smart. I actually made this one block that I can manipulate. Shocked I was that smart. So let me. So magic is in these games is so difficult because if it's too dangerous, players never want to use it. And I had a system for second ed D&D at that point. At one point where that was kind of the thing. It was like a sigil and a rune casting system, but it was so dangerous players just wouldn't use it. But then if there's no limitation, it just runs rampant. And we saw it even in this playtest. And I had players who were very conscious of not running amok and abusing power and they ran amok and abused magic. And it was just the way it was. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't a problem. It was just the magic was really powerful. There were a couple instances where the magic users would kill and do everything before the players had any chance to get into it. Hello, nice to meet you. Kapananaga, welcome. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, well, that's kind of what the corruption system in this game is. So there are things out there that formerly inhabited this world, and that's kind of the whole backdrop that humanity has emerged from enslavement from these creatures. They call them the Karkaron, that are essentially demons. Yeah, they're essentially demons that gained access to this world, and they've, at least as far as the quote starting area of the game, it's demon free, or is it? That's always but the way the demons continue to work is through corruption, and anybody can use corruption. By the way, a swordsman can use corruption to gain bonuses on dice, but they risk getting a corruption point, and the more corruption points you get, the worse things get for you. I kind of think of it in terms of all the obvious references, but also in terms of how, let's say, Bill Ferny in the book in the Lord of the Rings book, the guy who had sold himself over to Saruman, or I think there was some discussion maybe Bill Ferny really was Saruman in disguise or whatever, or Wormtongue, that he was this kind of normal guy till he started dealing with Saruman, and it degenerated. Yeah. Yes, it is. I remember that song. It's hilarious. Or yeah, in Call of Cthulhu, yeah. Go ahead, yeah, you can use magic. Sure, use all the magic you want. Yeah, that's gonna work out. Like Lisanne hasn't been there for the conversations I've had with Justin. He was on a little bit last night where, he wanted his character to know some necromantic magic at the start of our last Call of Cthulhu game. And I was like, sure, you absolutely can do that. Here's this book that'll help you do it. I mean, the group kind of knows about the Cthulhu mythos, but only one of them is really as into it as I am. So he was, he kind of saw this as like, oh, this is a tool the GM's giving me to help me with this situation. And of course, that's not how it worked out at all. It was, every time he used it, his sanity just started draining away, and Hotep shows up and starts chatting with him in the guise of this, this kindly Indian man, because it was set in the Old West. Well, he wasn't so kindly. He got unkindly very quickly. Things got unpleasant very quickly. I knew this thing was going to be a nightmare to reformat later. Oh, let's see. Gee, did you put it on a separate layer like you always tell your students to do? Clearly not. Like I said, I actually based a lot of the feel of the use of magic in this game off of Elric. The old Elric, or whichever variation, Elric or Stormbringer game that Chaosium had put out, where there's this marked problematic decay on the part of... Can I just copy this? Will you just let me copy that? Problematic decay on the parts of people who are using magic too much. Even primeval magic and witchcraft, if you abuse it and you don't take into account, you're careless by trying to spend corruption to gain successes, it can screw you up. But sorcery is the one, of course, that is the most dangerous to use. Let's see how to work on entertainment presence. All right, so let's get rid of that one. Is this the fillable sheet? Interactive sheet. So this is the fillable sheet. Okay. So these are all fields. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the issue with Cthulhu, is that again, as a player, it's really difficult for me to play it because, like you and Alan, I'm pretty steeped in the mythos, and it's really difficult for me to play dumb. But I've really got to say, I've only played it a few times in recent memory. One was at a con, and it was very well run. It was a very different type of Cthulhu game. You were all playing children in this old house, and their mother had disappeared. So you as a player, even if you knew everything that was going on as a little kid, you had absolutely no clue, right? I mean, that was like this really great way of handling it. As a game master, it's kind of fun for my regular group because they're more interested in playing characters from different time periods and different settings. Like the first one I ran was 1979 Beach Party Adventure. Complete with, of course, with all the tropes of, Dagon cultists and fishmen and the whole 9 yards. And it was great because I think only a few players. My partner Diana had some has some reference. She's read some of the books, but she still isn't as entrenched into the whole mythos as I am. One of the other guys had played a little bit and had read a little bit, but he didn't. He still didn't. He's not so into it that it was ruinous for him. But it's kind of fun because, yeah, this group is good and they're onto it, but they don't really know the mythos, so it's still easy for me to do things like give them a book that'll help them. Whereas most players would be given this book to start and they'd be burning it like the first 10 minutes of the game session. They're like, "Yeah, well, gee, look, a book to help me. Oh darn, too bad it fell into that fire over there." And I think Justin, the player first, was just like, "What are you doing to me? You're screwing me over." And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of. That's kind of this game. It's not fair." Whenever someone sits down to play Cthulhu with me, I'm like, "Just so you know, this game's not fair. I have no onus to be nice to you in this game." Magic skill. Okay, so actually, magic skill, I think I have it over here. Yeah, our last Cthulhu game was set in the Old West, so I was using the Down Darker Trail supplement, which, I mean, I referenced that actually only a little because I did so much of my own Old West research, but it was a good starting point. It gave me some good ideas and some good ways to integrate concepts of the mythos into this setting. So it was fun. So Kapanananga, do you have your own game that you've written, or are you modifying something, modifying an existing game? Trait variable. Yeah, all right, variable. I think I actually manipulation mechanical devices. Wow, I think I actually have. This is pretty much medicine, perception, ranged combat, reveling, riding, search, seduction, sleight of hand. Swim. I don't have. Oh, I do have swim on here. Okay, cool. Streetwise, stealth. Swim and unarmed combat trade. Huh. All right. This is more. I guess I updated it after I did some skill revisions because I was really afraid I was going to log on to this today and go, "Oh my god, I have this whole thing that I have to do that's not gonna jive." Okay. Let's see. That was a little less stressful than I thought. Yes, please replace it. You shouldn't ask me to replace that file. I guess that's good, it does. So with the print character sheet, let's see how different it is. I guess I just a little bit different output formatting. Yeah, the only issue I have with this background, Tom, because you mentioned the background earlier, is that it's really just difficult to print sometimes. I mean, I have a laser printer at home. I don't have a inkjet printer because I got tired of a ink cartridge running out and it costing more to replace the cartridge than just buy a new printer. So I got this laserjet printer that's like 10,000 copies per cartridge or whatever, per ribbon. So on black and white, it just doesn't print particularly well. So I think for any playtest I were to take this to, I'd have to go and get some nice prints. Or I mean, assuming I'm at school, I would just print it there. Don't tell anybody. No, I wouldn't use the really good printer. I would use the mediocre printer for the lab, color printer that's open for the lab. Is there any functional difference? I mean, I know this isn't. Formatting's slightly different. Yeah, I really like it. It's like modifying vampire Victorian era. Oh, cool. Yeah, that really lends to it. I really like Vampire Victorian. I only played one game of it, and it was really nice. It was a fun setting to play it in. Again, I still play old school Vampire, so I don't I haven't gone to the new version. I just don't have a reason. It's not even. I mean, I've Call of Cthulhu. I played fifth ed for years. I only went to seventh recently, just because I got a bundle, like a humble bundle with the book and with a bunch of supplements for some small amount of money. I was like, and I do like some of what the seventh ed has done. It does make characters slightly more survivable, but it doesn't cheese out. Characters can still go insane and die pretty easily if players aren't careful. But it modernizes the system just a little bit too to make it compatible with some newer RPGs in terms of feel and intent. Probably Dark Ages is my favorite vampire setting, of no shock to anyone who knows me, because I'm kind of obsessed with the real medieval era. So I think it's really fun to just play a vampire during that time. Like, no, unapologetically a vampire. I'm just trying to make sure there's no real difference between the interactive template and the print template. So I guess I should put these in proper alphabetical order. Oops. Oops. Magic should be down here. Manipulation should be up there. I think I might have just gotten lazy and had an empty spot and said, I'm just going to throw magic up that empty spot for now. Because I also knew the last time I updated this sheet was well over a year ago, and I knew the game was not even close to finished at that point in terms of skill lists and things like that. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time redoing a sheet. I mean, I think the initial build of this sheet took me one whole weekend to get right and get used to making a sheet with fillable areas. So I have that. I guess my next trick, I need to find someone who's really skilled at Roll20 to make me an interactive sheet on Roll20. I bet I could put some feelers out. Find someone. Yeah. So, okay, as a guy who's writing an RPG right now, let's see. So that's a weird thing. I mean, I played one totally human-centric World of Darkness campaign. It was actually one of the better games I've played and run. It was literally like people got so into like being spies and political intrigue. I'm like, they don't even have to be vampires. So I just started using the vampires as the backdrop. That's pretty funny. Thanks for coming on and stopping in and chatting, by the way. Yeah, so I mean, as a person currently writing an RPG, here's the hard, cold reality. You stay in business by putting out new editions. That's really the cool. My dog is being really ridiculous back there. So you know, I usually wait 2 editions before I make a leap. Like if it's a game like Call of Cthulhu, especially, I'm like, I've known this game so intimately, or Vampire. I've known these games so intimately. Call of Cthulhu since I was very young and shortly after it came out. Vampire since the day it came out. D&D, I was really. I mean, 4th was awful. I tried it. It was a terrible role playing game. It was a great strategic board game, but it was a terrible role playing game. 5th Ed came out. I'm like, just stop. like please just stop. And then I played a game of it online, and I was like, you know what it's really good for? It's good for my group, for instance, who are not necessarily hardcore gamers. Whoops. Hardcore gamers and rulesy people, and they just want to play a character in a world. They were able to sit down. I was able with them to sit down and play and run 5th Ed very, very quickly. And guaranteed I'm an really experienced game master, so that helps. But I think that's the real strength of 5th Ed. And it definitely does a good job at making the characters feel super powered and really tough to defeat and very heroic. And I think that's all well and good. I prefer my games a little grittier, personally. But my group loves it, so that's what we're playing. Out of any of the newer games, I like Pathfinder 2e better, but it's very crunchy compared to D&D. I really like, I was chatting with Lasan last night, who came on after we had wrapped up our main chat. That's a first ed D&D campaign that has been going on for 44 years. And the time I played it, it was hilarious because I think my highest score was like a 13. And, I was playing this gnome fighter who was like just kind of this guy, he was so low powered compared to every other game I was playing at that time. And it was great because you had to just figure things out. You couldn't rely on your super crazy abilities to resolve a situation. And that is one of the challenges I find with 5th Ed. I set up a lot of role play and environmental challenges, but one of the biggest challenges I was faced with running it is just how tough the characters are and how much damage they put out. And if they can control the battlefield and control the initiative of the encounter, even really tough monsters bite it pretty quickly. And so it was definitely a learning curve on my part too. Still playing D&D 1. We stepped back and played it a few years ago. I ran a session of it. I was like, oh my god, this is so basic compared to everything else that's out now, which I'm not saying that's bad at all. One of the charms of a game like that, where structurally the characters are so bare bones, is that it's then really up to the role playing and personality of the player to make them different. And that's the one thing I've really noticed is cool about those really old school games. And conversely, I like the fact in Pathfinder 2, I can make 3 different gnome fighters at first level, and they're very different characters, mechanically speaking. But you have to have a group that's invested in knowing all of those mechanics. And I can assure you that that is not always the case, and it doesn't always make a game more enjoyable. I don't think I need modifies. I don't think I need that. I think with that I can move this whole section up to give it some more breathing room. I don't think I'll do graphic design today, but apparently I am. Graphic design and layout. Which is funny, because that's how some of the people who came on here today know me as a teacher of graphic design and layout. Wish I could do that. Shift on, do that. Move this up. 2 errors. What does 2 errors mean? Pre-flight document. Oh yeah, okay. That's all for pre-production. Not a big deal. 44 years of fluff, yeah. It's also just, again, it's shocking when I step back to some of these older games and I'm like, wow, characters died really easy in these games, you know, versus some of the newer games that are out there. I think people were a little surprised in Call of Cthulhu this last game, or, you know, the first time I just said, well, no, characters not there anymore. The players were so intent on saving the character, I let them make first aid rolls and prevent death. But in Call of Cthulhu, when you take, 12 points of gunshot wounds to the head, your character's not getting up and walking around the next day. It's not D&D. It's not. And I was like, character's basically out of the game. It was kind of. I think they were kind of surprised because we'd only played 5th Ed D&D up until that point, and I think they were kind of like, man, this guy will actually kill us. The great thing is, the first Ed D&D characters took 15 minutes to make. That's the other balance. Like, if your character got waxed in, the first hour of play, you're like, oh, well, I'll just make another one. I'll make his twin brother. Well, so that's something else there, Wendell. That's a very interesting point. That when your character is not individually a superhero, you realize you actually do have to work together. And I think I do enjoy that about games that do work on, even Vampire. Again, I've played several Vampire campaigns, Chronicles, and I've seen several more where by the end these characters were basically deities. There was nothing aside from yet something else more powerful. It was like Marvel movies. Like, you just have to escalate the power level of every adversary because it's so difficult to challenge. Even a 7th generation vampire that has had 200 experience points to spend over a few years. It's like they really, there is not much in the mortal world and even in the supernatural world that will stand up to them. And that goes for all the White Wolf games because it is an arms race. A power race. But the coolest games of Vampire I played were when the game had first come out and you were like afraid of the cops, or you were afraid of the delivery man catching you attacking a victim or stealing something. To me, those were some of the best Vampire games because it was definitely a different vibe. Alright, so I need a section for Lucra. So where is that going to go? Initiative action points. So there's your traits. There's your languages. There's your... I don't think I need 6 language slots. Most characters are going to start with 2 And unless they are a linguist, they're not going to take any more than 2. I did revise the way languages work. Essence, current, max, corruption is there. Action points, concept. So lucre, I need to add in lucre. I'll probably just copy and paste corruption. That's going to interfere with that, won't it? And full disclosure, I really hate InDesign. It's just such a kind of, compared to a lot of more modern programs, even Illustrator, it's such a kind of archaic interface, but it does the job. It does the job like very few other things do. There. Okay, yeah, apparently it's not doing that job. There we go. You know, I'm not convinced. I'm just going to steal this one, copy and paste. There we go. I should probably collapse a lot of these panels so you can see it better. Is hanging out down there. When we get rid of it so it doesn't screw anything up in the programming. Magic form, awareness, mind, focus. So what do we feel, since we have quite a few people who are experienced gaming and game writing on here today, what do we feel about having the point allotments for each section right on the character sheet versus a separate, here's how to quickly make your character, or both? Or do you think both are positive? Like say, so defense is basically your finesse plus 10, I think, or 6. I'd have to go back and look it up. Like, do we think, I mean, that clutters the sheet a little bit. I don't know if it's worth working that stuff right onto the sheet or whether it is something that you know, to have a separate cheat sheet for making a character. I'm inclined to do a separate cheat sheet, but I'm curious to see if anyone has other opinions on that. Oh yeah, I think I made a fillable without a background, just because it was easier to read. Or this is a really old fillable. That's fillable Neil made for me. One of my friends and players. Yeah, so that's the other thing too. Like seeing the rules. Well, so I definitely am going to have a rules template in addition to the character sheet. Maybe I should just build something into the character sheet. But I agree, like knowing your body, knowing you have your attributes, and knowing you have 20 points, whatever, 20 points spent on attributes. So whatever, I have to go back and write it up specifically. And then being able to just plot up them right down there. That's interesting. This might be a larger question to play around with. Yeah, I think I had one copy as printable, one copy as Department of Redundancy Department. Yeah. Yeah, there's a one. So one's basically just inventory. The other sheet is your core stats. There are the gifts and the personas are on the second sheet. Those are your, the gifts are kind of your special abilities, and the persona would be traits that you pick early on that actually do have a numeric effect in play, mechanical effect in play. The rest is mostly notes. But I'm wondering if instead of some of the notes I could put on the second sheet, put some of the, like a quick reference chart. Because I've got a cheat sheet. I've got the equivalent of the GM screen / cheat sheet that requires total updating. I don't know if I'm going to get to that today. Body finesse. Interactive. Action point. Corruption. Innocence. Nice. Trying to get rid of some potential trouble spots here in the layout. Yeah. Yeah, Department of Redundancy Department. It's always a challenge, like print character sheet. So there's the print. I'm just gonna close the print one because I don't think the print is noticeably different. Because I think I can just export this as a regular old PDF, and it'll be. Let me try it. Well, export as PDF print. Replace pages. So let me rename this so I know what I'm doing. this open. So that's the difference. So the print sheet, this doesn't have, the box, the bounding boxes I have to put in and activate them to be visible in the print version. So there is a difference. Boy, that's a pain. Well, that's all right. That's why I'm doing this. Trying to think if there's a shortcut. Save myself another 45 minutes. Print sheet template. All right, let's close that out. Whereas character sheet print. Save this down. Let's see if that works. The only thing I could do is if I have to make a secondary print version, lighten up that background a little bit. Yeah, so that's the difference right there. All right. Hey, well, what is this but hours of work? All right, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Drop me a follow if you aren't already following the channel. Thrilled to see you. Please come back. I'd be curious to see how your game system is progressing as well. Have a good day or evening, depending where you're at, or morning. Oh well, I guess I'll be modifying this component too. Oh well, that's what this is. Okay, dodge is out of here. Remember that. That's down. Handling's down. Oops. Character sheet. Yes, we're gonna save that. Well, I guess because it's a new version of InDesign. That's what keeps asking me to do different things. That's always ask people just drop in. Like, I don't think I know that person offline. It's cool that I've had people just kind of show up and be like, yeah, what are you doing? Let's chat about it. That's why I'm doing this. point. 9.6 goes back to 12. Yes, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's cool. Like I said, I was urged to do this by Curzon, the other Tom, who he watches several streamers who do this, and he said to me, he said, you should be streaming your game work sessions. I'm like, get out of here, come on. I understand people who know me coming on to chat. I get that, and I think that's of course cool. But I'm like, no one's gonna sit and watch me write my game. He's like, just do it. Okay, you were right. He was right. I'll take it. This is the print, yeah. He's like, it's a great way to get your game out there and let people know what you're doing and hold yourself accountable and all these other things. That's right, we don't need that anymore. We can take this. Whoops. We don't want to do that. Okay, I should lock that background. Maybe that should be my first trick. Breathing room. Had a couple folks from overseas stop in to England and some other places, just popping in to saying hi, and like, pretty cool. I watched one of Killer Bits. I watched one of his streams the other day. He was doing some game writing. There's a fellow from England who had popped into one of my streams and brought like 10 friends at one point. I was like, okay, hey guys. Glad I'm so fascinating. Writing, finish. Alright, I feel like this is getting a little cluttered visually in here. File. Export. Print. Adobe Print. So let's see how that goes. Alright, cool. So actually, yeah, I should introduce. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. And somebody said that to me one day, and I thought it was really nice. They only popped in once. They didn't follow the channel. They haven't said anything again, and they just watched for a while. And I think that day there was only one or two people, and then finally they just typed, "It's really nice to watch someone be creative. I wish I were that creative." And growing up creatively. So the introduction is both of you are painters, and I should have said that off the bat. Lisanne Lake is a fairly well-known, longtime fantasy illustrator, tarot card illustrator, all book covers, all kinds of stuff. And Wendell is a painter who's, I believe, you focused a lot more on realism and more classical styles, at least that I've seen you do. The student of mine from Bucks County Community College. So, yeah, so like several times I've had mostly artists on here. One day that Jeff, who's been doing the illustrations for the games, popped on and was like, hey, what's up? I saw you were on chat. I'm here at work. I just wanted to say hi. And I was like, oh, there's Jeff. So he's doing a really intensive internship now with somebody. I'd have to go look it up. It's on his website. But he's like, I'm not going to be able to get any new Tales content to you for another couple months because I'm in this. I'm going to work on some stuff, but it won't be finished. I was like, hey, I get it. This it is absolutely valuable to take a good internship and really push yourself forward. Trust me, I know. I wish I'd done more of that early on in my creative life. And it was just, oh, well, I got to do this. I got to, do that. I don't really need to do an internship for free. That whole kind of... Well, this I think, is actually also a class. I think he's actually should have taken a class, but it segues into doing intern-type work. So he's learning a lot. I think I determined I was just going to copy this. Yeah, well, and I'm sure, yeah, it's not hard, right? That's what I was just gonna say. And again, I'm not a painter, so yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. And I think I was literally about to say I think Lisanne can give you some tips on this. I know we've talked about it a little bit, Wendell, how to make that leap. And I know that's what Joseph does. He bases like all the characters he's made and all the scenes he's made for my game so far. He's based them on reference, either photographic or on a life reference. So I think taking something in life as a basis, and I know I've had all the basic art courses, your drawing, your painting, even though my training has been in photography and in whatever else, audio and music or whatever later in life, but all my photographic training, that's one thing I did learn is that so many famous classical artists based the paintings off of some sort of imaging, whether it was the camera obscura or photographs later on. Advancement point here on in. All right, so let me see about reducing the opacity of this background. So let me just double check, make sure I have all of what I need in place. I didn't put the focus front. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. Google Image is your friend. It's true. Again, whoever would have thought, right? Like all of us began our lives and our education in a day before the internet, and whoever thought I wouldn't have to go sit in a library for months to look something up. Like I said, that's my joke. Is half the time when people are on here watching me work on a game, half what they're seeing me do is switch between documents and Google Google stuff. It's like So I think the interactive is done. Let me close that. Let me try to do a final export. Make sure that the interactive is working. Interactive, save. I think I ended up doing this in InDesign instead of Illustrator because it was so easy to do. So easy to do the interactive sheets. Yeah. Let me switch the view. I remember we talked about that because I remember you saying you wanted to do some work on a painting of one of my bagpipes, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, can't lend it to you. I use them almost every day. I practice every day. It's like I can't even lend them out for 24, for 2 days. But I could give you a photo, and you were like, I really am not good working at photos. And like I said, I get that. When I did my very first, there's my interactive sheet, drawing and painting stuff, they had us actually work from photos, and I think they did that. Well, we did from life. We did a lot from life, but I think. Oh, is this fillable? Oh shit, that's the new ones. Some of the lines aren't fillable. Oh, man. I think they had us do that just to get used to it. All right, I'll have to go back and I'll have to make those fillable. Use that one line. I'll have to keep this open as a reference. Oh well, glad I checked it. I think they did that just so that we would get really used to, in case we had to work from a photograph. But I agree. I mean, being able to walk around an object, being able to touch an object, those are things that inform your hands. Like the first thing I had to do, remember having to do in my first drawing class, is he was like, walk up and touch the parts of the still life. And of course, as 18-year-olds were all like, touch the parts of the still life. But then once we did it, we were like, oh, okay. Clearly that doesn't hold together when you're working with live models. Depending on the type of modeling session you have going on. As they get thrown out of painting seminars. Yeah, was that right? Kind of dumb of me to put a line there instead of a fillable form. Oh, the Madeline's back. Are you amused by that? Yeah. Yeah, I've heard some interesting horror stories about live models. My friend Lauren, who's popped on and off here, and she's in my regular group, she has just this one story that I'm like, of this really creepy model, and I have male model, and I was just like, oh my god, like, and like she tells it, and you're just sitting there, and you're like, nah, not really. She's like, he was that creepy. I'm like, wow. So like, obviously he didn't come back. I forget what school she was at. I don't know if she was at Bucks, Montgomery County Community College. I forget what she did. She's also a very good artist, very talented artist. She's really good at making maps. I think she's going to end up doing the final maps for the game. She's doing a map for Mark Reinhagen's new game right now as we speak. I think a couple other like known games. Like I'm like, wow, cool. It's really creative. Made some really cool stuff. But that says for all digital art, right? Like that's the whole illusion, the whole delusion about digital art is that it's so much easier than doing everything without digital technology, and that's BS. You still have to be a painter. You still have to be able to draw. You still have to be able to, take photos. It's because you have Photoshop. If you take a lousy photo, Photoshop's not going to help you. And that's one thing a lot of the students in my photo classes are kind of blown away by at first. They're like, "Oh, with digital camera, I thought it'd be so much easier." I'm like, still, even with Photoshop, it takes a lot of work to produce a professional looking photo. Obviously, once you get good at it, like painting, it's a lot faster. But focus. All right, I think that's solid. So let me export that. Fillable sheet. Replace. Export. And refresh this. There we go. I saw some lines here. Retained the line. Actually, I kind of don't mind that, but I want to keep it consistent. So you asked about skills. I mean, this is your whole skill list right here. And it's not necessarily, I think I'm sharing that screen. I'm there point. It's like I do in class sometimes. So either pointing to a screen and the students are all staring at me like, what are you showing us? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that's kind of the entirety of the skill list there. Oh yeah, I see. It's literally the... So it's not overwhelming. Like I said, it's not Rollmaster. It's not even Warhammer Fantasy where you just, you have pages of skills to deal with. But yeah, as far as working from life and models and all that versus photo, I definitely dramatic lighting helps. I love painting, but as you painters can attest, I don't really have a place to set up like a permanent studio in this house, which is one of my chagrins of the house. And it just doesn't have a lot of space, but it's fine otherwise, but it doesn't have a lot of space. Is that by the time sometimes I do set up to paint, it's especially, when I was at school full time, if I start setting up to paint at 9 o'clock, sometimes it's 11 before I even really start painting, so I don't know. I don't think I'll get to it on sabbatical because I really need to focus on the game, and I am doing music stuff in addition, but really the game is the focus. So I think it's going to... I probably still won't get to do a lot of painting, which is unfortunate. I paint miniatures though. I've gotten back to that. We've all discussed Blood Bowl before. That's the one GW game I've relented and consented to play because I'm like, I'm not getting back into Warhammer. I'm just not. It's just this a huge amount of time, money, space that I don't want to invest right now. All right, am I exporting interactive? I'm exporting interactive. Okay, file, export interactive. And I think the miniatures are awesome, So it's not like I have an issue with buying Warhammer miniatures. It's just a whole other rabbit hole I'm not going to go back down. But Blood Bowl I will play because you have your team of 12 to 16. It's fun. Oh, cool. I think the character sheets are updated. Didn't really expect to go down that rabbit hole today, but apparently I did. It needed to be done, especially if I'm going to play test this again in the next, couple of weeks or month or whatever. Or at least have people start looking at the stuff. Kind of my whole goal these few weeks is to get a package together that I can have online, to Google Docs or whatever, or give to people and say, okay, here's the game. Why don't we make up some characters and play test it? And for them to be able to do it in such a way that I don't have to be there to reference it. It should at this point be legible and have enough clarity that people can start on working on the game without my being there. I guess I better save that. All right, close out InDesign. So I guess the character creation doc, or the old character creation doc, is old. I don't need it anymore. Yeah, no. Well, so my buddy Justin, who we do Blood Bowl with, went kind of nuts, and we now have like a dozen teams, but or 15 teams between us at this point. And I have a few. I have the two from the latest starter set, the orcs and the black orcs nobility. I have the dwarves, which I purchased, and two chaos teams, which were gifted to me. And I don't think I have any other complete teams. We have the Dark Elf team. But then Justin has gone and pretty much filled in all the blanks. But I mean, it's like the only other real... I mean, he does... So he's a professional musician. He's a professional musician, music therapist. But he's a really good painter, too, and really, really good creative outlet. And he's home a lot sometimes with his two kids, and he needs to do something for himself, and so he really wanted to play Warhammer again. And I was like, I really don't want to get into this, And then I saw a new Blood Bowl came out. This was 2 years ago when the new Blood Bowl came out. I was like, you want to play Blood Bowl? I'm like, I'll do that. Because I've played in leagues before and, done all that. All my old school miniature gaming stuff. So we dove back into Blood Bowl. Yeah, it's like our one other friend of mine locally. He has like so many 40K pieces and Blood Bowl teams. He's like, if you ever want to play, just want to show up. He's like, yeah, you just pick a team or pick an army. Blood Bowl 40K rather is just really just this whole other thing. And for as much as I like it, I just don't have the desire to dive back into that. So I guess the next thing I'll do is make the quick character creation guide that I have. Generally run for about 2 hours, a few minutes left. I don't know if I'm going to dive into that live. Terrain making is cool. I used to do it. I haven't gotten back into it. One of my online friends, in fact, she just posted all this really cool terrain she made for her D&D games. And it's very cool. I enjoy it. Again, it's another thing. I just don't think I want to spend the time in the terrain making now. But it's fun. And yeah, I used to just grab old styrofoam and did a bunch of 40K ruins. So Patrick, who is working on one of the games I intend to publish, he made a bunch of his terrain for the promo stuff, and it's really nice. And he's, like I said, he recently hooked up with an actual professional company who kind of was like, well, we can donate some terrain to your playtests. I was like, that's great. Alright, so yeah. The next stupid game design trick is, stupid gamer trick is to make the quick sheet. quick character creation sheet. All right, I'm going to start wrapping it up for today. Thanks a lot for coming on and chatting. It's great to chat and catch up with everybody. Again, great to see you, Maddie. It's just really uncanny, but I'm glad you came on. And definitely send me a note with some of the stuff you've been working on. Really excited to see that. And thanks for the few people who came on who were new viewers. Give my usual end of the chat pitch right after I save this document. Let's see. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. And so, oh great. Yeah, I'll check my email and text and all that in a few minutes. Definitely keep in touch. Let me know how things are going. Yeah, it was nice. Everybody connecting. Like it was, 2.5 hours into the chat. I'm like, oh wait, you're both painters. Maybe I should mention that. So just in case someone is lurking, I will give the end of chat speech and pitch, and of course we have from the tomes here on Twitch. That'll all be archived at the YouTube channel, so please go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well if you like what you're seeing here. And if you see this on YouTube, go ahead and bump over to the Twitch channel and sign up and follow along. Fox and Boar Games is the website for the game company, for the game I was working on today, Tales of the Harrowed Land. Feel free to follow us on social media. And most of all, thanks for everyone who's been popping on to see these chats. So, great chatting with everybody, and I'll talk to you all sooner or later.